left at 6 o'clock to go home, there was obviously a frown coming from your manager at the time, but it wasn't so
Well,
it
because you're
wasn't
not
so much
working hard
around.
enough.
Well, it was just work-life balance. It
Yeah,
wasn't there. So, a big shift in terms of well-being and just people, the way that people look at it. And I think also, when you think about getting how to get stuff out of your team, like just grinding people to get the best out of them every single day for 8 hours is just a thing of the past, I think.
yeah. What does well-being look like in your experience
Well, look,
since this change has happened?
it's what's on probably what's on offer in terms of support, I think. It's about leaders as well, probably recognizing that individuals are all different.
Yeah,
It's this, yeah, it's the structure of employment. It's the structure of teams. It's how you work. There's just a huge focus on it. But I think if you get that mix right, then and we're working pretty hard at Crew on some of this stuff. Like, I think if you get that mix right, it can be quite rewarding as well for leadership. I think for leaders.
yeah. As part of your conversations with prospective employers, is there anything that the candidates you're bringing to the table are asking for differently today than perhaps they were 3-5 years ago?
Well, 100%. Like, yourself, you've been in and out of the game now over the last few years. It used to be about, in our industry, it used to be about money. It used to be about what your salary was. And now when people are coming and having conversations, that's probably 3 or 4 down on the scale, on the ladder, in terms of what people are looking at. They're looking at, like, flexibility is huge, and it's a hard one, especially in our industry, because we're a sales environment, right? So you want energy on what we call the dance floor. You want people around you when you're doing that. So when you've got salespeople that want flexibility, you've got to lean into that. But at the same time, you need to be able to have people in the same room to build, that culture piece as well. So I think, in terms of that, like, it used to be salary, and now it's flexibility. You've got work from home. You've got, what people are thinking about in terms of their family. Can I just jump away from my desk and go and look at my kids' sport? There's just lots of things that come into people's decision making around that stuff now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crucial. I've kind of always had that philosophy. I think going back when I was working for Microsoft, we had the technology back then. Clearly, technology company, right? We were afforded a lot more opportunity. Because we're a global company, so everyone's remote from the mothership, so to speak. Anyway, but the office was still the hub. I caught up with a good mate of mine last night that I used to work with at Microsoft, and he's now at SAP, and he's working from Queenstown for a month.
Yeah. But that wouldn't have been possible,
No.
5 or 10 years pre-pandemic. Like, can I take a month off and work remotely from Queenstown? Like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been an option. I mean, I think some companies probably forward thinking were probably there, but
Yeah.
in our industry and recruitment, it was always people in the office. The reward was the time off. That's the big difference, I think, is, now it's sort of more part of the everyday, is the flexibility.
Yeah, and as long as things are getting done, philosophically, if results aren't happening, then a conversation is had, and those results are an agreement between you and a team member and that sort of thing. They're not necessarily, bottom or top line results, depending on the nature of the role, but something that you've agreed with an individual. Can you share a story about a leader who you've placed, or someone that over time that's been able to, or has an outstanding balance between driving results and promoting that team wellbeing? You talked about yourself just in sales, and there's different roles, different needs, I guess.
Yeah. This is, you sent this one through, and I was wrestling with this one a little bit. I suppose I couldn't say I placed him, but I did obviously call Tom and offer him an opportunity to come to New Zealand and join forces. And we didn't know it was well-being at the time. 10 years ago, it wasn't something that we were talking about in terms of, hey, it needs, we need sort of this in our environment.
Mm.
And initially we were offering things like, when we started hiring, we're like, oh, we'll offer gym memberships to people. And then we realized that people didn't always want to go to the gym. That wasn't what motivated them in terms of their own well-being. And
Mm.
so then that deviated, and we thought about it and thought mental health days, and we offer. Tom introduced something called duvet days. So it was literally a day where I think it's pretty common these days, where you could just literally ring us up and go, hey, look, I just need to check out on the couch, Netflix, you know, no questions asked. So we have 4 of them a year. We have 1 a quarter in our sales team, and we think, that's hugely important. And then little things like just stand up desks, lollies in the office to provide a bit of energy. There's there's a few different things that Tom introduced over time that I think would be something that was pretty forward thinking. And I think back, Tom and I used to use beer as a well-being, something that helped us cope. And that was probably obviously a pretty short lived thing. But I think Tom was a great example of that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the beer thing, though, it's more the social, the connection, the stuff that you're bringing people together for, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that that the whole social, like the drinking aspect of it, has evolved drastically. In the 30 years that I've been in the game, and shit, nearly 20 of those as a manager or leader of some description. If I go back to my telecom role, I had a beer fridge. And my sales coordinator's role, that was almost written in a job description to keep the thing stocked during the week. It's right beside my desk, and there's 10 other sales managers with their own beer fridges as well. But that culture's evolved, right? As people
Oh,
realize that well-being is not just having shits and giggles, right? So,
yeah, and not just bearing the anxiety or whatever people are feeling, not just bearing it through alcohol. And Tom's a
mm,
classic example, right? He hasn't been doing that for a few years now, and it's quite inspiring. Like, he spends a lot of time these days actually going for walks and coffees with our team and getting into them one on one about how they are.
mm,
And he's often asking, how are you? And you know this can be quite confronting. But when
mm.
your manager's doing it consistently, I just think it's quite special. And he comes across pretty rough and tough, but he's a big softy in the middle, mate. He often, he's had a few of the team crying on his shoulder a couple of times because he's asking how they are. So no, it's good. Like, well-being, it's gone from sort of a drinking culture for us definitely into a lot more, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, look, and it's just changed times. COVID was a big sort of what like the pedals to the body, and jolted people away to different ways of thinking about working, and and engaging in that the well-being, mental health stuff. Right, it's getting a lot more destigmatized uh, every week, every day. Right, so in terms of that, when you're working or engaging with a candidate, so you've got a stable of people that you have relationships with, and some of those are contractors, some of those are people that you place every so often. What are you advising them in when looking at new roles, and the sort of questions that they should be asking when going to an employer?
Yeah, yeah. So it's an interesting one, right? So I tend to take it a step back and try and figure out, especially at the level that we're trying to recruit at the moment, like we're sort of leaning into that C-suite and trying
Hmm.
to do a bit more leadership. So the questions I'm trying to identify, do they know what they're looking for, rather than me bringing the opportunity to them and try and
Hmm.
selling that to them? What what are their drivers? You know, um, what kind of questions are they asking me in terms of about the opportunity? Is it, what's the base salary compared to, is there learning? Are they funding learning outside of work, or do they give you time within the working week to, to for your mental health, or for your own, to go out and learn stuff you know, within that framework? So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I suppose I take a bit of a step back now that's 17 years into the game as well, right? So it's more for me about identifying and having a conversation about, do they actually know what they are looking for when they're coming to me? And if they don't, then it's talking to them about those different parts of what they want that story to look like. What do in 5 years when you retire? Because that's the it's like me, it's like you, Dash. What are you, 55, 60?
Fuck off. 53,
But
mate,
it's like,
in a week.
but in that leadership space, it's probably a little bit more towards the tail end of somebody's career. It's about what they want that story to look like. So, but yeah, I suppose that's where I come at that from.
Yeah, look, and that's changed, right? I think I would go back and even in my own career, I've taken jobs for the moolah. I've taken jobs for the bright, shiny brand and all of those things. But I look differently at things now in terms of, does it align with my values? Can I be my best for that organisation as much as them getting stuff out of me? It becomes really important. I think even you and I had a conversation about a role at a point in time, and I said, no, I'm not going there. It's just so against my beliefs and value systems. And we parked it and you placed someone else, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly, right? And that's
mate,
important.
that's just actually reminded me, and I had another situation where I was talking to a candidate about working in a certain industry, and they were like, "No, I can't do that because this is how I feel about that particular industry."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that is a great place to start if you think about it. Like back in the day, oh, what's the salary? I've got the skill set, and then you get in there and you don't like the culture, you don't know why they're there, your values aren't aligned, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a revolving door. And you see those businesses still out there at the moment. Like it. If you can align your value proposition, your internal why with the company's why, you'll be there for life. So,
Yeah.
as a employer, when I'm trying to employ staff, like that's the gold nugget that we're trying to find within our people. Like, what drives you? Why are you sitting here working with me? Like, if I can get into that, then the rest of it, the job's done.
Yeah, it's really important, right? And like, if there's anything people that are listening or hear this in the future, is getting really clear on what your values are, right? And actually asking and,
Yeah.
and asking, are the values you espouse on your website, or that, how do they show up in the organization? I don't just want to hear wank words on PowerPoints and on brochures around the walls. It has to show up in behavior. So I'd strongly encourage people to be probing and asking questions about that, and of the manager and all those kind of things too,
Yeah,
right?
and doing their homework,
Mm-hmm.
like it's the South Island, New Zealand. It's not a massive market. Like when Tom and I came out of, well, when I moved back specifically out of Sydney in 2013, like I was applying some of my work habits from the Sydney market into Dunedin, and very quickly, like, hey, just because I say this is urgent, Cory, this is not tomorrow. It's like 4 weeks is urgent in Dunedin. So, like it's a small market here, so you've really got to be careful with that stuff. I think, and you
Yeah,
want
it's
to make sure.
interesting. I noticed that. I've I spoke to a colleague of mine probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they had moved from Wellington and were really struggling in Dunedin. I mean, they had a job because we were colleagues, clearly, but the thing that they hadn't or didn't have was a network. I moved to Dunedin and I knew everyone already because I'd had the privilege of working for a global
Yeah,
company. God
Microsoft,
knows how I
mate.
got through that door.
You got,
But
you got the tattoo, haven't you? You
well,
got
I've
the
got the
tattoo.
tattoo, right? It's just above my belt line, on my back. Pity the shears. I still don't have the shears, but anyway, the and that afford like having a network that Dunedin, you got to crack it, right? Because it's quite insular in that sense
Yeah,
for some really good reasons, right? But it also presents us with a big challenge where we want to bring and attract global thought and leadership, and not just managers and leadership. I'm talking about thought leadership and doing things. It becomes quite difficult. I've experienced. What's your thoughts around that? particularly having worked in the UK and Aussie, right? They're very different markets to us.
Oh, massive. Yeah. And it's interesting, right? So if you think about technology or just recruitment, from my perspective, like it was sort of born out of the UK
Mm,
and in the early 90s into Australia where I worked, and then obviously across here in New Zealand. And they're very different. Like the UK is still quite traditional in terms of how they approach things. So they're a little old school, whereas I think Australia and New Zealand, because they're smaller markets, you can be a bit more dynamic about decision making,
mm,
and you're seeing a lot more flexibility. Little things like how you use your um, how you go about using train of thought here. Your what do you call it when you're off sick leave. You get lots of different
certainly,
versions of sick leave. So how you go about using sick leave, is very different in New Zealand and Australia to the UK. Like it's very traditional. If you're sick, you're sick. But over here, like I was talking to my old man about this, and he was saying, in New Zealand when he first started in his company, he'd take his sick leave to go duck shooting. Like it was his boss knew he was doing it,
yeah,
but that's how it was. It's a bit there's a bit more structure there now.
yeah,
But again, like it's absolutely.
yeah. It is a funny author, but even that, the evolution of sick leave in the context of mental health and well-being too, right? Now, sick leave. I, if you're not feeling the top of your game, because you're not the top of your game every day, and if it's something up here, take some leave and fucking
Yeah,
take it as sick leave, right? You
yeah,
don't have to be on your deathbed coughing a lung out, or had an injury on the weekend, playing rugby and you break your leg or whatever. There's all these other things. I think that's evolved too. Is that something you're saying?
yeah, yeah. Well, it's not just your traditional, take a concrete pill and get back to work, is it?
Yeah,
How many times did your old man say that to you? No, you'd be like, coughing your
yeah.
guts out, just getting out of bed, going to school, even when you were younger. Like you just
Soldier
went,
on.
oh,
Remember,
you did, you
cod
soldier on.
roll.
But especially I think in office environment, like you can't just turn up coughing.
No,
We hired Alvin O'Donnell a few years ago, and I remember within his first 3 or 4 weeks, he got really sick. And he just came into the office and he had a scarf on and gloves at his desk, almost trying to get through it. And Tom was just like, mate, that's just not what we're all about. Like,
yeah,
you were sick, go home.
yeah. Get out. Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's just a different mentality. But I suppose what my point that I was trying to get to before, lost my train of thought a little bit, was that, in New Zealand and Australia, you can there's a bit more flexibility around how you can use that. I
Mm,
think whereas it's quite traditional over in the UK. Like it's still playing catch up, even though the market started over
yeah.
there.
Yeah, like they can learn a lot from the the antipodes, if you still hold with that
Yeah. No, no.
traditional the crown view of the world. No, let's not go there. That's just no.
Yeah, no.
That's I could get out some strong opinions. It won't be so fucking
Well, no.
easy. How?
Well,
Uh, hey, look, as someone juggling multiple roles, because look, you're a salesperson, because you're peddling the wares and you're doing the development. You're also a director. You've had a merge with another, pretty significant organisation, New Zealand. So you're doing board stuff and all that. Personal development. How do you lean into that?
Well, when you say personal development in terms of personal learning, or just how I manage myself in terms of my
Or
day to
both?
day, yeah.
Shit,
I
one's just as hard as the other.
I've always been real reluctant, to be honest with you, Daryl. Like, I was never very good in a classroom.
Mm,
Um, Mathematics was always okay, but like just naturally learning stuff. So whenever there's an opportunity for me, like very reluctant to lean into like personal, like actual learning development. But
mm-hmm,
I suppose how I try and keep myself in the game is just by surrounding myself with people that are really in tune with that stuff, and then them
mm-hmm,
sharing information, and I can pick it up in those forums. So having gone through the merger, we're now, we were the largest in the South Island. Now we're one of the largest in New Zealand. I'm just surrounded with a lot of people with a lot more experience than I've
Hmm.
got, and they share every bit of information that they come across, which I just love, because I don't know where to go and find information, but I'm a bit of a sponge when the information is presented. So
Yeah,
I'm learning a lot. So that's my personal development now, is really leaning into the leaders that we've merged with, and I'm learning a lot from them.
yeah,
Yeah, that's probably how I'd look at that, mate. It's also one of those ones where I think you've got to lean into those things that do scare you a little bit as well. Like
yeah,
like I can't say anymore with the position that I'm in. Oh, yeah, that's not me. Someone else. Where I've just got to go. Okay, I need to go and actually investigate that and pick that up. And then, but for me, it's about identifying within the group of people that I'm working with, but also my friendship group and everything, about where I can access that information and learn it. So I
yeah.
hope that answers your question, mate. It was a
Yeah,
good one.
that's
Yeah.
important, right? I mean, shit, I've got more books than you can shake a stick at, and my Kindle's quite heavy. Jokes. But just in terms of doing that, it's also bringing on people that are better at something than you too is really important, right? Like,
Huge. Oh,
um,
mate. Yeah. Yeah.
there's lots of people that like found an organization and are the shittest CEO, right? So I know you guys have done something, and that's not saying that you're a shit CEO, but you've done some stuff in that you've shown leadership and recognised you need some capacity. So how have you dealt with that, just from a personal point of view, being that this is your baby and now you kind of had to relax that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, it's like you just touched on, like wearing many hats is how I'd probably describe it. Like I used to wear a lot of hats, and
Mm,
now I sort of wear one hat in this lane. And it's been a big shift, because I was always leaning into a little bit of sales management, which was Elgin and Ange and Christchurch, and then a little bit of what Tom does, and then what I do. And now I've got to stay in a lane. And it's been a big mind shift. But at the same time, if you can get your head around that, I think it sort of clears out a lot of noise, and you can
hmm.
be quite focused. So rather than me being a mile wide and an inch deep in terms of what I'm doing, I'm sort of like an inch wide and a mile deep in terms of what I'm sort of focusing in on, which is obviously leadership.
Yeah,
And then how to do that really well, and what I thought leadership search was and what I'm learning it is just it's chalk and cheese in terms of process. So it's just I suppose for me, leaning into glass is half full. Okay, this is the decision we've made to merge, and now this is my lane here. I'm really going to be very good at this, and I'll assist in that other stuff when I get asked to, but I don't have to be across all of it all the time.
yeah,
And some of that's been quite refreshing, mate, because before the merge, I was chasing timesheets and people hadn't paid us, and
yeah. I
like I
remember
was
that.
managing sick leave for the internal team, and it just very scattered. So I always felt like I was achieving a lot, but not a lot of depth in terms of what I was doing. So
Hmm.
yeah, for me, having a more narrow focus, I think is quite exciting. So yeah, leaning in there. Leaning's the new word. Leaning in there massively.
Leaning in. So let's explore that a little bit more then, mate. We talked just prior to coming on here, technologies, the industry we have in common. I'm a leader in the industry. Um, what are you looking for? And when you're talking to someone, what is leadership and the skills that are required to bring someone in to make a difference for an organization?
So that's changed heaps. I think the landscape shifted there quite a lot. So rather than sort of outcomes focused in leadership, it's more around supportive style and probably emotional intelligence a little bit. I think there's a
Ooh, there's something
there's
to
a couple of
explore.
areas there that you know it used to just be almost here's the carrot and the stick. Management. This is how you lead. You lead through you do X, I'll give you Y, and that's probably just not working like it used to. And I think the leadership style is evolving quite a lot. And
Mm.
yeah, and like I say, the you know, how do leaders get feedback? How do they set expectations? How do they manage concerns? You know, and then you've got to lean all that into a package where you're thinking about somebody's mental state as well, right? So there's quite a bit that goes on there. So I think 20 years ago it used to be, yeah, like I say, stick and carrot. And now there's a lot going on in leadership. So for me, it's the difference between leadership and management. You know,
Hmm.
you don't ever hear people talking about micro leadership. You know, like it's well, you don't, right? So it's
No.
micromanagement, and if you've got that in your team in the current state of where we're going as leaders, I just think you've probably got your mix a little bit wrong.
Yeah, and so what is it? How does it show up, Corey? What does it look like? And if those skills and you're seeing someone do it, how do you know that it's been done well?
It's soft touch, right? Soft touch leadership.
Hmm.
So well-oiled machine. For me personally, coming in the morning and there's just stuff going on the dance floor. People are active. It's all there's activity. There's energy, right? I always
Hmm.
talk about, and I talk to the team a lot about you control the energy around your own desk. So
Hmm.
it's about what that space looks like for you. So if that space across your whole team in the office is quite energetic, it's really obvious that you got your mix right.
Yeah.
So in our game, because we're a sales floor. So if you walk into your sales floor and it's quiet, you start at 8:30 and no one's been on the phone, and it's 11 o'clock, and you're sort of twiddling your thumbs and people are on their phone, and it's quite obvious for us.
Yeah.
But and if people are turning up a lot, um, people are going on holidays, people are hitting their personal goals and achieving individual things within your team, like I think it sort of shows up when you're doing it well, and it's quite obvious if you're honest with yourself when it's not going very well.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, and that like a lack of energy is a pretty good loud signal in terms of people seem to be or appear to be waiting for permission to do shit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Personal agency, something I talk about with a colleague of mine a lot, and it's easy to say, but when you see it happening, people jumping on stuff and they feel like they're empowered and they're in an environment that they're able to do those things. It's freaking hard.
oh,
Like it, like what the thing that shits me about leadership, hey, you can read all the manuals and all these catch cries, and if you pay attention on LinkedIn, you can drown in all the inspirational quotes. But behavior, for me, it's all about behavior, right? And
yeah,
that's what I'm looking for. And I struggle a little bit because I'm highly self-critical, and I'm always thinking, well, am I doing the right thing, and have I got the mix right, and all these sort of things. And I'm doing these podcasts and talking about it, and then I'm thinking, oh fuck, do I do that in the office, and am I talking shit here?
yeah.
it's,
Oh, mate, that's
it's
the
like,
imposter syndrome,
well,
right?
it is
Yeah, yeah.
100%, right?
But someone said to me the other day, imposter syndrome. If you're not feeling like an imposter, and you're in a group of people in a learning situation, then you're in the wrong group because you
Yeah.
probably know more than they do. So you're
Yeah.
not learning anything. So feeling like an imposter is actually not a bad thing. Like,
Yes.
it means you're injecting yourself into an environment where you're around people that are probably better than you. But the fact that you're sitting there, that's actually kudos to you. So
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it, right? It's turn it upside down. It's the other side of the coin, mate. That's
yeah.
really that's a powerful kind of thing to take away, and I've got to do more of it.
Oh, we all do, mate. Like
Well,
coming, even you asking me to do this, I was like, what am I going to talk? What am I going to talk about?
look, well, you've got me here. You're not going to not be able to talk, right? Because I'll just ask you questions. Like a little fox terrier, mate, with
Yeah.
dog with a
Fox
bone.
terrier. Yeah,
Yeah.
I seen your old dog Murph, mate. You're probably more that shape.
Well, yeah, a little bit. Probably that 75 kilo mastiff, but that's all the time I spent lifting tin in the CrossFit gym.
There you go.
Look, you've been trying to encourage me to get back into doing a bit of fitness because I trapped you and didn't let you out. What do you
Loved
do
it too, though.
now?
Loved it. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Well, I had to go to a rehab gym, Body Synergy. There's a wee plug for Body Synergy actually.
Yeah.
I loved CrossFit, and it was actually you got Tom in first, and Tom came back and said to me, "You'll love it." I was a bit skeptical, but I absolutely loved CrossFit. I just loved the competitiveness of it.
Yeah.
It resonates with me in terms of we're in a sales environment and we're always trying to achieve. If I could do it now at my age, mate, I'd still be doing it. But unfortunately, I think it's a bit more of a young man's or young woman's game, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I train regularly. It's probably how I go about managing stress, to be honest with you, mate. If I'm either not feeling myself, I've always been able to self-regulate that way. Some people meditate, uh, some people do yoga. Um, I've always just been able to go, and if I get a sweat up doing something, it
Yeah.
can sort of reset myself. And if I'm in a situation where I'm, manifesting on something, or there's a situation that's coming, or something's happening, or I was going to have to do a podcast with you, for example, I went, I went and done a session, just do a
Yeah.
session and get a bit of a sweat up, and then you just realize, okay, it's not that bad what's about to happen. No one's passed away, like what's in front of you, make some decisions, at least make an action, I think. And, you know, I heard Tom talk about me being a little bit fat when he was chatting to you, and I thought that was a little bit unfair.
It's like, I don't recall that. I think you're making that up.
I thought that was a little bit unfair, but hey, it's live. What can you say?
Yeah.
It grates me that he's lighter than me actually. But no, and you look at what he's doing, running 50 kilometers, 100-kilometer races, like
Yeah.
that mentally keeps me in the game. Like he's doing it, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to be better. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
no, fitness has always been my regulator. Which, I'm not saying I'm a physical specimen or anything, mate, but absolutely try and keep fit.
Well, I don't think you have to be. Like, we're not all designed to be elite athletes either, right?
No,
The simple reality is, like, I had a powerful realization last night that I need to get back, and I'm probably ready. I'm walking down the stairs, off Main Street and Queenstown at the car park. You walk down there and you're
oh yeah,
down,
yeah,
and I'm like down the stairs, navigated those mint, hit the concrete blocks on my ass
yeah.
at like 5 o'clock, mate, and there's just people everywhere, and I sort of bounced up like if someone was videoing, it would have been a bloopers thing because I hit the ground so hard and bounced back up. The point is, though, my hip took it, and it's been a year since I had hip surgery, and I said to Leslie when I messaged you later, yeah, I'm ready. I can probably go and put some tin on my back now because I survived a fall without
Mate, come up the road.
denting anything other than my pride.
It's all sort of CrossFitty AMRAPs and stuff. That's the reason I'm still there. It's just
Yeah.
not the big weights on your shoulders and above your head. So
Yeah, you just got to be sensible.
come up and put me through my paces, mate. We'll see how you go.
I don't know. No, I need to just get some walking in first because I struggle for breath. Hey, in terms of we touched on development. I want to kind of flip that around, personal development, and how have you worked with a potential candidate and coaching or advising them on the development they might need to get a role or going for a role that they think they're ready for.
Yeah, again, it's. I probably lean into a little bit around, do they know what it is that they want to do? Like, and then it's about identifying, I suppose, what they want their career to look like, and then applying a little bit of direction there. Like I suppose that's the beauty of what we do as well. We're across a lot of different businesses and a lot of different industries, so
Yeah,
we're tapping into everything. It's not real, you know, it's ag, it's tech, it's government. There's a lot of different places that we can push them. It's about probably identifying or trying to get them to identify what they want to do, and then you can plug them into it. Like for our age group, there's loads of opportunities now, even for me, if I wanted to go and be in technology, to go and do it. Like I had a guy we had a guy working for us a few years ago. You remember Sebastian? Do you remember
Yeah, Seb,
Seb?
yeah,
Yeah,
he went
yeah.
and
So
became a developer, mate, didn't he?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So and a great example. He was working for us in sales, was a car salesman before he came to Crew, and then decided he wanted to be a developer. And he just went out, came back and said, "Oh, look, I still remember him shaking as he walked into the office to tell me that he was quitting after a year and a half." God bless him. Hi, Seb. And he'd found a course that was 4 months and it was intense. And you can
Mm.
go out. So you can go out and put yourself in that environment, learn that skill set. And now look, I think he's a developer for Zero. So
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
He became I saw a post just recently.
So there's
That's
a lot of
awesome, mate.
so there's a lot of opportunity, I suppose, in terms of our oversight and recruitment,
Mm.
in terms of where we can push people. So it's more about, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating the same drum, but making sure they know what they want to do, and then you can just guide them in a direction. And then it's about tying in what you've been talking about in terms of, you know, what kind of values do you have internally? Where do you want to work, and what's important to you? Making sure that that's all really tight, and then that search becomes quite easy.
Yeah, and it's should I had something right on the end of my tongue? That was it.
I keep talking. Sorry, mate.
No, it wasn't that. I was just like they're all over the place. I've come up with a new acronym:
What is it?
TL DPA.
TLDPA. I'm going to write that down. What is
Yeah,
that?
too long, didn't pay attention. Uh, I was really stoked because you went, in our age group. So I'm kind of in. That's good.
Well,
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
there's always a 10-year window there, 45 to 55.
Yeah, I'm at the upper echelon. That's all good. I've got all the experience and the lashes to prove it. You mentioned emotional intelligence earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation. Do you see much of it in technology? I'm trying not to laugh my ass off, but this is a strong opinion that I have that technologists don't have
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
EQ.
Look, I mean, I suppose when I'm leading into leadership search and trying to place leaders, you'd hope that that is that is at the forefront. Gone are the days where I think in as a leader you can just be a specialist at what you do. You need physical, emotional, mental. You need spiritual. You need financial. You need a full package, I suppose, in terms
Mm.
of emotional intelligence. I think you need, yeah, yeah. I'm going to say yes, just to be safe.
Just to be safe. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think the technology industry suffers a dearth of emotional intelligence, right?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
it's just promotion
um,
through longevity, or like there's a lot of that happens. I
yeah,
think you're good at tech, but I relate that to our industry, right? So you get these super recruiters that are just awesome at their job, and then 3.5, 4, 5 years into recruitment, oh, that person's running out of steam. Push them into management.
yeah,
And I don't know if you'd probably have to talk to it a little bit more. I don't know whether that happens just in technology in terms of what you do, but we see that a lot in our industry, and it doesn't work all the time. And I think that people are a lot more aware now. Actually, we just probably need to shape that person's day to day a little bit different. Apply a bit, what you're talking about around mental health. Make sure that they're not burning out. Like burnout's a huge thing
yeah.
for leaders these days. So I think yeah, there's opportunity to change that. Is what I'm sort of trying to get to.
Yeah, I agree. I would actually actively have a conversation with someone and say, I don't think you're going to make a good leader. I think you're a better individual contributor, right? Like back to your point, what do you really, really want?
Want to do, yeah. But what do
And
you do if that person says, "I don't know, but I'm tired of what I'm doing," but they're really good at it, especially in sales. Like I've got ulterior motives as well, right? Like I want them to stay in that job because I want them to do well for them, but also for the business. And so
yeah,
how do I keep that person motivated when they don't know that themselves? So that's the learning piece that you're talking about as well, I think.
yeah, look, and that comes into that emotional intelligence, right? Recognizing that someone is at a point where they are questioning what the next week and the next month and the next 6 months, whatever time frame they're looking at, and you've got to explore it in a constructive way,
Yeah.
and that might be, they might be doing really great. Let's sort of use that example of sales. They might be doing fantastic, and they've focused the last 5 years. They've hit all their numbers, and they've got a small portfolio of 20 or 30, customers where they're doing all their activity in a single space. Well, the stimulation they might need is just 20 or 30 customers in another industry.
Yeah.
That change might be enough to reinvigorate or whatever.
Or 4 days a week and 20 customers,
Well,
like,
yeah.
yeah, you go the other way. And that's, I think, what I'm learning as a leader is, it's different. It's just different from when I was on the tools 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
working huge weeks and just grinding it out and churning out the other side and replace me. And I think if you can put the right framework around those people now, adjust things when they get to those points, you can get longevity out of people, and they can be happy at the same time, rather than it
Yeah.
just be about business.
Yeah, it's that balance, right? And
Yeah.
like sales when I was doing it, like, well, I'm still in sales. At the end of the day,
You're either selling or what are you selling or being sold to in every aspect.
exactly
Someone told
right.
me one day, you're either selling somebody something or they're selling you. So
I mean, even a developer in our industry or an engineer that's doing something, if they've got a good idea they can't convince someone else of, their idea goes nowhere, right? So how do you get to make that change or put that you've got to sell. Like,
yeah.
it's not a dirty word.
No.
It conjures up a whole lot of shit, any color you like, or whatever. But back in when I started selling, it was a numbers game. It was 12 no's to a yes kind of bullshit. All these
Yeah.
touches you had to go.
Do you know they talk about now? They talk about between 17 and 32 touch points. So it
Yeah,
used to be 7 calls in
yeah,
recruitment, like 7 actual calls. Now it's touch points. So messaging, text messaging, you know, one of the multiple platforms that you can reach out to people on, or be in front of them on. So between 17
yeah,
and 32, I heard the other day. That's quite interesting.
yeah. The biggest lesson I learned though is you have to be fucking intentional, right? If you're just picking up the phone and doing the old cold call with no intention, like it's just you're just starting at A in the phone book and
Yeah.
ending on Z by the end of the year,
That
you're
still
dreaming,
happens.
right?
It still happens in our industry. So
Yeah,
that's what we're really big on, adding value. Like you've got to add value. If you're calling somebody for the first time, or speaking to somebody for the first time, or interacting with them for the first time, you know, don't be asking for something. Be adding the value. Like be
mm,
almost offering information, offering some sort of value, and that's how the relationship starts. Whereas if you're trying to take from somebody all the time, take, people don't like that. So,
yeah, they turn
yeah,
off, right? Like that.
my opinion, loosely held, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. It's fact though, right?
Yeah,
Because it's the human condition, where we are more open to trusting and engaging with someone that's free. It doesn't come with an agenda, or it doesn't come with an appeared agenda, right? So,
yeah,
and that comes with just being open and sharing and doing all those things, right?
yeah. And I
It's
love
really
it. I
important.
love that platform now. Like, I wish I'd have known that when I was younger. It would have been awesome. You know, knowing that if you turn up and offer somebody something, they'll probably give you a tenfold in return, rather than going, can I have something first? But
Yeah,
yeah,
I always used to, and I still do it. If we're doing an RFP, right, or we're engaging with someone that's going to sell us something, and the first page of the proposal or the first paragraph of the email pitching us is all about them, I'll all but tear it up, delete it, because they've clearly done, they're just intellectually lazy and they haven't understood us.
yeah,
And if it's a cold call, there is so much information available on the interwebs these days that there's no
mate.
such thing as a cold call anymore,
Well, you think about when I
right?
first started, when I first started selling, you had whatever note was on the system, and it was clunky, and a phone number. There was
Yeah.
you couldn't really search anything. Well, I didn't know how to anyway. Tom will probably laugh at that because I still don't know how.
Yeah, but that's that's only really the last 5 or 6 years that's really taken off. Like,
Yeah.
Google, we used to Google our own name 10, 12, 15 years ago just to see shits and giggles, but it didn't mean anything. But now, if you Google either of our names, you will find a plethora of information, right? That annoys me too, when people haven't even done that and they don't know who's in the room. And you just
Wow.
know that they don't know who's in the room
Yeah.
because they're saying shit that if they knew. Yeah, anyway, it's a strong opinion and I don't fucking loosely
No, but
hold that one.
that's that's you ask me questions around how do you go about prepping candidates. Like that's a given. Like, know who you're going to be speaking to. These are the
Mm,
people. Like, LinkedIn profiles, if they're in our industry, they're generally 95% of people have got one. You can do a little bit of homework, find a
yeah,
bit of common ground.
yeah, it's crucial, right? I think that's sage advice, regardless whether
Yeah.
it's, even if you're going to meet a colleague for the first time, you've got the job, right? And you've been there 8 months, or there's people I haven't met in our
Yeah.
organisation, I'll go and stalk them on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you? You want to look like and want it to feel like you care enough to actually go and do that little bit of homework. So,
Mm.
yeah,
EQ, emotional intelligence.
yeah, there you go.
That's an example of demonstrating your give a toss. Um, in terms of global perspectives, what are you guys looking at the moment and thinking about bringing into the New Zealand context, or isn't it relevant?
What- So, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, like just leadership and those things in general, and recruitment and technology and the skills
Yeah,
required.
it's. I suppose it's a lot in terms of. It's not, so I keep going back to the stick and the carrot. Like, it's just there's not that environment anymore. So if I'm talking to a leader and they're talking to me about what's in it for them, not sort of what they want to bring to the table and what they can add to a team and how that team's formed and who's in that team and questions about the other side. Like, I think it's
Mm,
quite obvious, I think, in terms of what that person or that particular person's going to be a good fit for. Look, absolutely interested. A lot of what we see come out happening in Australia tends to roll into New Zealand between
yeah,
9 and sort of 12 months later. So, Tom and I started in Sydney, and I think our team had 60 salespeople on the floor, and of the 14 that were in our particular team, I think 10 of them own their own IT recruitment company. So,
yeah,
or have got shares in it. So we stay in regular contact with that because it's massive. But yeah, I think there's just been a huge shift in terms of preparing leaders for the opportunity that they're potentially looking at. Like, it's having a game plan. It's making sure that they know that they're going into a new opportunity, that they can't just go in guns blazing and work for 3 years, because then you're going to get stuff like burnout, you're going to get stress, you're going to get mental health, all playing a part in that. So
mm,
I think what we're seeing now is leaders are coming with a bit of a strategy and a bit of a game plan for those things. So when they're getting quizzed on, how do you regulate yourself, or what do you do when you get stressed, they've got a strategy
hmm,
in mind for it, and they've got a bit of a, so it's being proactive about those, because there's probably a few of them, but it's about being strategic and having a strategy around those major things, and then making sure that that process is in place for when you feel that switch happening. And I think leaders are more in tune with that now than probably
yeah,
what they were. Like, I think it used to be just bury your head, guys especially, terrible in
yeah,
New Zealand when I got here 10 years ago. Like, no one was talking about their feelings, like mental health. Like, talk about it. Like, have a conversation with your mate, your best mate, like, why not at least start talking about it? And I think it's happening a lot more. We're already seeing a lot of that. So yeah, like, and that's coming through Australia. I'm not sure about the UK yet. I mean, they're pretty old school. I haven't worked over there for a long time, but I'm sure, there's
yeah,
organisations over there, and the new age groups coming through as well. Young entrepreneurs. They're so, they're 22 to 25 now. They're not setting up crew consulting at 35, like, so they're already got that mindset coming in. So I think where we sit currently, and fast forward 10 years or 15 years, you might not have that same landscape, if that makes sense. The new norm will be people talking about burnout and
Yeah.
mental health, and it just won't even be a discussion because it'll just be where we are.
Yeah, like I couldn't agree more. I think if there's one legacy I want to leave is the encouragement with my generation, and not forcing people to talk about it because that's not the right thing to do, but just making sure I'm advocating for mental health awareness and all of these other things that are part of the human, as much as the technical skills you see in front of them, not just technology, but just skills and competence that they see in front of where they show up. Interesting conversation made by I don't even know what gen it would what she would be, but it was my mate's daughter last night. It was similar age to my girls. So what's that? Oh no,
No, there's
young,
Gen
whatever.
something in the
Gen
last bit of
something,
the last bit of
Gen,
the alphabet.
yeah. But in early 20s and talking about leadership, right? And the comment that was along the lines of the person with tenure ends up being the leader and they're not tooled up to do it. Are you seeing organizations lean into proper leadership development stuff, or is it still do it on your own?
Oh, look, we're in the deep south, right? So I think there's absolutely that still happening. Like, it'd be silly to say it's not, right? We probably see it all the time. How did that person get that job? Like, I don't understand that skill set in that role.
Mm.
But I think people are more aware of it now, and like I say, fast forward another 5 or 10 years, will it still be there? Probably, but that's quite an interesting comment, though, isn't it? Coming from a 20-year-old in terms of
Mm.
what they see, because
Shit, yeah.
I would have said no had you not led in with that conversation. So they're still seeing that.
Yep.
So what does that say? That probably tells us that is absolutely still happening. Is that something that I want to see in our organisation? No, absolutely not. I think where it falls over is people are a bit too afraid to have that difficult conversation with the person with the tenure to say, hey, this person here that's been here 3 years is a better fit.
Yep.
That's probably where it falls over. So yeah, that's quite an interesting observation for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of. I mean, I had an inkling. I mean, I had a few conversations around this, and my aspirations are to change this and bring leadership development. Like we at work, we have like a future leaders program and all of that, and it's going great guns. Although
Is
the
it new?
focus is
How new is it?
well, it's been there as long as I've been there,
Yeah,
so
cool.
so it's 3 years at the minimum, but it's been going on longer than that. But in terms of the leaders that are already leaders, there's a bit of a gap here. I know that's not unusual, right? That exists
Yeah,
in a number of
yeah.
organisations,
It exists in ours as well, right? Like
right? And so it becomes it's an opportunity to do something about it, right? And I think in your game, there's that bringing the right people in. It's mindset as much as it is. So if you're going to be a leader, what's your personal development plan? Who are you getting coaching from? All those kind of things, right?
yeah. And the
And
why piece. Why do you want to do that? Why? What is it that you? Is it just because you think and you've been told that you do a job and then you become a manager or a leader and then that's your career?
mm,
Because that's what we learn, right? We learn that you
yep,
just go into management. And now, after being in management, like, God, there's easier jobs out there, isn't
yeah,
there? Or leadership, sorry. There's easier jobs out there than leading. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think everybody's built for it. So now that I'm a bit older and been a bit wiser and in business a bit longer, I'm more comfortable sort of questioning, I suppose, when people turn up and go, I want to be a manager. Okay, so tell me why you want to be a manager. What is it about that?
yeah,
And then what the right answer to that is for the individual, right? But if it sounds
yeah.
inspiring and they're energetic when they say it and you can see the excitement, that's all I need. But if it's, I just thought that's what I was supposed to do and that's the game plan, then that's a bit different.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with Chris Quinn years ago. It's back 2005, 2006, I think. Gen I, and he's like, "What?" Because I was applying for at that point it was a sales leader's role, and it was, it's my first management job. Why do you want to do this? I said, well, I've been doing the skills for a long time, and I enjoy them, and I'm good at them. Hit my numbers in terms of how many hours I build and all that sort of thing. But helping inspire and get the best out of others is the next challenge I'm looking for, and lifting the game. And I took that into CrossFit, right? And it used to piss me off when people would look at go, how can you coach CrossFit? You can't even do half the movement. And I'm like, doesn't did Sir Ted? When did Sir Ted play for the All Blacks? You muppet. He never played. He was a school teacher, right? And he's one of the most successful All Blacks coaches in history.
That's a great
You
example.
absolute nimrod.
Yeah.
And so often the person with the best technical skills is the worst person to coach or lead.
Yeah.
Right. The other strong opinion that I have in that space is, and I've seen it probably 2 times in my career, the top salesperson in the team gets made the sales manager for whatever reason, tenure, doesn't matter, best at their job. And guess what happens? The next quarter, the next half, the sales are shit.
Yeah, because
and
he's
everyone
not
goes, "Oh, what's going on here?"
He or she's not selling, right? So,
well, the best you just took you took them, you took Beckham off the field and put Daryl on striking. Like, what do you think? No goals, right?
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating thing, and I've seen leaders just arise and they sit there and they don't even want to do the basic stuff like one-on-ones and do that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, because it's one of the most challenging part of the job for me. I come home at the end of those days and I'm mentally and physically really nailed, because it's using your brain in a different way. You're engaging on a real emotional level, and people don't expect that. Hey, look, we've just ticked over the hour, which is
Wow.
like,
There we go.
it never feels like it, mate. And even I was sitting here earlier going, "Oh shit, I was pretty knackered," and I've come out of this really energized.
Well, that's good.
If you were giving someone of our age in that continuum
There's a bracket.
advice to them as a 25-year-old or 30-year-old thinking about getting into leadership, what would it be? What would be the one thing that you wish you knew back then?
Well, for me, I can only really relate it to me. If I look back and I was 25, like I'd tell myself to lean in to those scarier moments a little bit more. Like, I think when I was young, I shied away from things like this, like, or it might have been a best man speech or whatever the situation was. I wish I could go back there and say, hey, that feeling that you're getting, that fear feeling that you're getting, if you take a step into that, you're going to learn heaps. You're going to learn so much more about yourself, and most of the time you'll be successful, but if you're not, you're still going to learn a heap. Like, I probably missed out. Well, what did someone tell me the other day? You miss out on 100 opportunities, or 100% of opportunities you don't actually have a go at. So I think when I was younger, there was a few opportunities that popped up for me potentially to step into more senior roles, whatever I was doing, and I did a lot of jobs, and I shied away from it because it meant there might have been an opportunity for me to look silly, or I didn't think I had the skill set, or there was self-doubt. So I'd love to go back there and just shake myself and go, look, just stand up physically, take a step into it, learn a bit more about yourself. You win, brilliant. You lose, you're still going to learn more than what you did not having a go at all. So
yeah, that's right.
I'd love to tell myself that, or put $1,000 on Jezebel and 99 in the Melbourne Cup, because it came in and I only had $10 on it. I made $90 and it was a lot as a student. If I had $1,000 on it, mate, I would have been a millionaire.
Yeah, it reminds me of horse racing. I went to St. Peter's in Cambridge, which is in the heart of the Waikato, and one of the guys at school, his parents' family owned one of the horse studs, and he got given a foal that, just because it didn't look like it was going to be anything, it turned into be Jennifer Rush. horse back in the day and sold for $14 million at the annual. It was like a record. I don't think he's ever worked since, probably, but
No, well, there you go.
he was
That's
12.
That's a great story, though.
He was 12. Hey, look, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you and everything that you've done for me through my career personally, what you do for others, and what you do for us as an organisation too. It's we always get good roosters and good candidates, and love your work. I'm not being paid to say that, people. Cory,
he's got a crew tattoo.
Yeah, well, I've got the hat. It's sitting over there, you know.
Oh, you should have had that on, mate.
I should have had it on. I've taken a few photos, but look, appreciate it, and hopefully we've shared some nuggets for people tonight and in the future too. So
thanks, mate. You popped my cherry in terms of podcasts as well. So there you go. Like I've never done something like this before. So no, I appreciate it. Appreciate you asking me to sit on here. So it's good.
Yeah, we might even go bring both of you back. We'll get Julian in soon, and then bring all three of you on, and it'll be chaos. It'll be
Jules will blow your mind, mate. He's brilliant. So
yeah, I need to reach out. He's been tagging me on some posts and stuff like that, so I need to take the hint. All right, let's wrap it. And thanks, people, and we'll see you in a fortnight with the next guest, and it's possibly going to be not a 50-year-old white guy-ish. So we'll see.
Hey, mate, I'm 45.